What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. If you're new here, I'll introduce myself briefly. My name is Simon Hill. I'm an American from Louisiana. I'm obviously melanated, chocolate, and handsome. I'm a Muslim. I'm a husband to a beautiful wife. And I'm a world traveler and beginning YouTuber. Though I've been doing this for 5 years. Where my $1 million at? Anyway, I'm filming this video in my wife's home country called Turkey, yeah. In a small city, maybe you haven't heard of it before, called Istanbul. And we are in a beautiful, beautiful, very hilly park called Yildiz. Merhaban. I want to briefly talk about something that has been a reoccurring topic within the comment section on my channel regarding the travels that I have done, where I have gone, where I intend to go, and issues related to Black travelers going to homogeneous countries. As I've said many times on my channel before, I'm a friend to the third world. Though I have said this before, I don't think many of you have actually asked yourselves what that means. I consider myself as a part of the people who are the dispossessed, the poor of the earth. Even though I come from the richest nation in the world, trust and believe I am a part of a group of people who are historically marginalized, put at the bottom of the socio-economic ladder, and treated no differently than the Palestinians in Israel, than the Uyghurs in China, than the Muslims in Myanmar who are oppressed. Any group of oppressed people, I sympathize with them. And when I think about places in the world that have the least, they are often the places that I find the most interesting and the most solidarity with. Does that mean I give money to homeless white people? No. No. But does that mean I feel much better spending my hard-earned dollars in countries like Tunisia, like Mauritius, like Kenya, like Tanzania, like Turkey, like Serbia, like Kosovo, like Albania? Yes. Yes, I do. It just truly makes me feel better knowing that I'm spending money in a place that a lot of people probably overlook, or they feel like is not worth going to, or is too dangerous to go to, and that sort of thing. I go to these countries with the intention of shedding light on what's there, hopefully showing a positive view of the country or place I go to, while also at the same time speaking out against injustice wherever I go. While yes, it is true, I am possibly too poor to spend as much time as I want in Paris or Berlin or London or Madrid. I could have made it work if I really wanted to, but I didn't. I chose to invest my time, my money, and energy in showing you places possibly that you don't know much about and have never expected to find a Black person in. We have millions of other videos of other Black YouTubers going to the major hotspots all over the world, living glorious, luxurious lives, and making it seem like everything's okay. My channel will always be about being in the soil with the people, showing the good, the bad, and the ugly, in hopes of enlightening people about places that are not known about, and also educating people in those places about what is right and what is wrong, from my perspective. Even if you don't share the same political ideology as me, the same view as me, I can just say this: I encourage you, Black or white traveler, any person in the world, to go to places that are less trodden, to speak to the people who are less spoken to, and to try to understand parts of the world that remain mysteries to many of us. Essentially, stop spending your money with people who already got it. They don't need no more. Let it spread. Break bread, like Jesus said. Now, one of the things I've learned from my travels throughout the developing world and many other countries as well is that some of the kindest, nicest, most interesting people you will ever meet are in these places. But also, as you can expect, and as I've realized myself, some of the most ignorant people in the world also exist in these places as well. And a lot of that has to do with their lack of contact with different peoples, also their socioeconomic status, and just generally a lack of education, which often is associated with poverty. Now, I still love the people of the third world, of the developing world, but at the same time, I have not been shy at all about saying that there are no excuses for unkindness, for racism, for bias, for discrimination against any group of people. Compound on top of that, because of their lack of economic growth or their lack of economic opportunity, many of the countries in the developing world that I've covered so far have been quite homogenous. Now, because of the uniformity of the demographics of many of the countries I've covered, plus the poverty, plus the ignorance, plus the lack of exposure to other different groups of people, some people have concluded that the problem is rather the homogeneity of a country or a place rather than the other factors that I mentioned before. What I mean by the homogeneity of a country or the uniformity of its demographics is this. I'll keep it super plain. If my black ass pulls into a country, let's say it's 100% white, like, I don't know, Lithuania or Estonia, hypothetically, people will say, you should expect racism to be there because the country is 100% white. I've gotten these comments several times from black and white people, presumably. I want to clarify this because I noticed this during the editing process, that I didn't say this during the recording process. A lot of people might assume that I think all white people are racist just because they are white, and that is wrong, and it's the opposite actually. I believe there's actually a small amount of people who are actually hateful towards others because of their race or ethnicity. But most people across the planet have been infected with the ideology of white supremacy, which then influences how they believe and how they act towards themselves and others, implicitly or explicitly. I do not believe at all that white people are inherently racist. No. And saying that white people are racist just because they are white is like anybody saying black people are X just because they are black. And you cannot live a full, peaceful, sustainable life thinking assumptions about other people just because of their background. That's discriminatory and that's wrong. And the uniformity of the phenotypes of the people, meaning most of the people in that country look the same. People then say to me, how can you be surprised that there's racism there when everybody else there looks the same? I often wonder to myself when I read these sorts of comments and wonder if these people recognize the cognitive dissonance they have when I presume that they would say that they are not racist. Meanwhile, they are making a very racist comment, saying that just because everybody looks the same in a country, therefore racism should be expected against people that do not fit that mold, is the same as saying this school is failing, not because it's not getting funding, not because they don't have proper books or qualified teachers. It's because the demographics of the school are 100% black, 100% Latino, or whatever X group you want to fill in there. Just because a place is filled with a certain group of people does not mean that it will automatically be racist. There are several factors that can lead to a place having many different problems, such as sexism, such as homophobia, such as racism, or anything else. It has to do with poverty, uneducation, people being misinformed, people being culturally conservative, people having a certain religious bent. Many different factors can lead to a place having issues. And if issues is not the right word to say, many things can lead to a country or a culture having a different attitude towards foreigners. I assume that many of the black people who leave comments saying that I should have expected racism in homogeneous countries that are non-black is because a lot of us in the diaspora and in the continent have been traumatized with images or lived experiences of a pan-European project, a collection of the Caucasians who have conspired to constantly harass us, oppress us, and keep us at the bottom. While at the same time, I assume many of the white or non-black viewers who leave comments saying that I should have expected racism in homogeneous countries that are non-black is because white people, by and large, or non-black people, by and large, are unfamiliar with how to have a proper discourse regarding racism and anti-blackness in the 21st century post-colonial era. It's just something that white people just never learn how to do because they don't have to. Now, the question of whether black travelers should visit homogeneous non-black countries is a question I will be answering today, but I do believe that the question has to be answered for the two different groups of people who make this inquiry. As for the non-black people who ask this question, my reply is very simple. I've moved past any point in my life where I feel like I have to dignify choices I make with my black body to anybody, especially non-black people. Many of you who ask this question know full and well that white supremacy exists in the world, though you live in a constant state of denial. You cannot have a good faith discussion with people who deny the existence of a pernicious force that permeates all societies. As for the black people who ask this question, I believe that the response has to be more clear and is more nuanced. Many black people would say to a black person like me who loves to travel all over the world, why are you surprised that there is racism against you in X country that is homogenous? But I have to ask you this. Have you ever heard anybody say this to a white person? I feel like a lot of people use these sorts of arguments in bad faith or not with full understanding that different groups of people could have different circumstances that require different things from them. But let's just be frank and real here. You would not tell a white man not to go to a homogeneous country under the threat of racism. Now, I know that's understood that you would not tell a white person that because most people know inherently that whiteness is associated with wealth, privilege, and prestige across the world, and they will not face the discrimination of anti-black racism because white has not been tainted. I find it very funny that we, as a people, have always strived to prove to the world that we are just as good as the people who have lied to the world and told us that we are less than human, while at the same time, we denigrate ourselves by telling each other that certain things we're not allowed to do in life because of our blackness, because of the anti-black racism that exists in the world that is not our fault. We should limit our own opportunities. Telling me that I shouldn't go to Serbia because there might be racism, or that I shouldn't live in Turkey because there might be racism, is the same as me telling you that you shouldn't try to be an accountant because there will be racism from white clients who do not want a black man or black woman handling their money. Or you should not try to be a doctor because there are many examples of patients being racist with black nurses and doctors, saying that they would never be treated by somebody who they believe is intellectually inferior. Black travel family in the diaspora, we know that anti-black racism exists in all of our societies where we come from, whether that be personal experiences we have lived through, anecdotal experiences of others, or by quickly glancing the statistics of how our people live in the societies that you want to name. And Black travel family from the continent, you know better than I do about the legacy that European colonialism has had on the continent, how it has raped and pillaged our resources there, and how it has left a lasting scar on the mentality of the black man and black woman in Africa. Now, while we are all conscious of the prevalence and permanence of white supremacy in the mentality of people across the world, has that stopped us? Should that stop us? Or will that stop us from continuing to achieve black excellence? I think not. While it might be hard to walk up these long hills in Yildiz Park in Istanbul, Turkey, trying to maintain your attention, it is very easy for me to say this. No barrier in the world is big enough to stop me as a black person from living my full life, nor should it be for you. Now, while we might have a strong predilection to presume that the pervasivity of the white supremacist mindset that exists in our home countries does also exist in the world around us in different countries, that does not mean that we can automatically assume it to be true. We have a strong hypothesis supporting this idea because in many countries around the world that I've reported on, and also news that I've covered on my channel, we have seen evidence of white supremacy and anti-black racism popping up around the world. But that does not mean that we do not continue to still search for Uhuru. What I mean is that while we are prone to believe that most people around the world harbor some anti-black points of view, that does not mean that we do not hold on to the hope that this might not be true. And we continue to search for that. While it is understood that the prevalence of Western media has spread hateful anti-black propaganda around the world, I do believe it is possible that attitudes over time can change around the world. And also there might be pockets of the world that have not been penetrated with the imperialist, anti-black, racist messaging, meaning that the people there might not be so tainted with what was given out before. However, I do think it's important that we as black people, as a family, as a community, do not continue to put each other down by limiting each other. Oh, you shouldn't do that because this might happen to you, or this will happen to you. That's not the way we should be as a community. And also on top of that, we shouldn't live in fear. We shouldn't live in fear of white supremacist violence, because no matter if you're in Brazil, where the police regularly shoot black men in the back for being suspected drug dealers, or whether you're in Canada, where a good majority of the people who are locked up in Canada are black and brown men, or whether you're in the United States of America, where as a black woman, you're going to make 60 cents on the dollar that every white woman makes. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Anti-black racism probably will appear. We do have hope that there might be a place where it doesn't appear. We continue to search for that place, but we do not live in fear of that in continuance of hoping to make a better world for ourselves and our children. And I'll wrap this video up with this, and I've said this several times before, but I'll say it again. We as black people, and I mean this, and we have to take this sincerely to heart, we are a blameless, bloodless people. We did not sail around the world and kidnap generations of people, force them to speak our language, rape their women until there were whole societies that were totally different based on our pillaging of their progeny. We did not cut off genitalia and force men not to be able to procreate. We did not brand people with iron rods. We did not whip people until they forgot their gods. We did not do any of that. Asians can't say that. Indians can't say that. And definitely, them Caucasians, off-white and white, cannot say that. So we should always go everywhere in the world with our head held high, knowing that we have a clear conscience. All the wealth that we've accumulated has been fair and square. There is not a single white hand in the world that got money fairly. All of their ancestors benefited from our labor, our blood, our sweat, and our tears, and our mothers' and grandfathers' deaths. Meanwhile, every dollar that's in our pocket has never been given to us. There is no generational black wealth. There is no generational prosperity for our people. We are the newest money on the planet. We are the most innocent people on the planet. Therefore, wherever we go, we deserve respect because those people know that we have hurt nobody in their lands. Therefore, any homogeneous country we go to, whether that be the Central African Republic or Liechtenstein, my black ass can go there with no fear because I know that I'm in the right. As long as I go, not committing crimes, not hurting anybody, not coming to steal or hurt the country, I can do as I please. And you as a black traveler should feel the same and think the same as well. Finally, to the question of whether black people should go to homogeneous countries. Yes, we can go wherever we want, period. And we shall not be intimidated, bullied, or afraid to step wherever we want. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. My name is Simon Hill, and peace.